But now we're going to look at a real world example of a price floor, probably the most pervasive and easy to relate to price floor, minimum wage. So recall that with the labor market, so the roles are kind of switched, right? So we as consumers, we are the supply of labor, and firms are the demanders for labor. So roles are kind of switched here, which is actually kind of nice because that helps us relate to this even better. And we have our usual demand and supply conditions, right? Demand for labor is downward sloping and supply for labor is upward sloping. But minimum wage, which is just a minimum wage, the lowest hourly wage that can be legally paid to a worker. It's a hot topic issue, right? It's a very contentious political issue, right? Now, what's the rationale for minimum wage? Well, it's to protect producers of labor, right? Provide them with a living wage, helping those who are poor and often unskilled. And to some degree, it may even provide some skills and experience, right? Help provide people with those skills and experience to get out of a situation where they are minimum wage earners. All right, so let's look at this in a graph. Here we've got a labor market. The equilibrium wage is $7. And if we had a minimum wage of $10, that would be binding, right? Price can't be below the floor. It wants to be, but legally it can't be. And so that leads to a surplus of labor, which we also call unemployment, right? So here we go. We can see the trade-offs of having a minimum wage. It creates unemployment. Now, in the long run, that gets even worse, right? Because of the more elastic supply and demand, right? Getting flatter. All right, so what are the causes of the unemployment created by minimum wage? Well, the surplus of labor we saw from the decrease in quantity demanded and the increase in quantity supplied. So that's happening. That's creating unemployment. But there are some other things too. So one thing that is definitely happening is that firms may replace these workers with machinery and technology, computers, right? Automation. And this is happening, right? So many fast food restaurants, you now order with a kiosk, with a touch screen, rather than a cashier, a human cashier. So we definitely see this. And so that's eliminating jobs, which exacerbates unemployment. Firms might also reduce hours for workers. So, doesn't really contribute to unemployment, but it contributes to underemployment, right? And then additionally, firms might relocate to a place where there is no minimum wage laws. So this is what we saw when jobs are being exported to countries like India and China and Mexico. And this definitely creates higher unemployment. Now, proponents of minimum wage advocate this, the training and the education and the jobs programs benefits, but it's not clear that these benefits exist to a large degree, and it certainly seems like a heavy trade-off given these unemployment issues, right? So it's not clear that it's worth it. What happens if minimum wage is below market equilibrium, though? It's non-binding. Well, nothing happens, right? As we've seen before with non-binding price controls, they have no effect. So if we had a labor market with a $10 equilibrium wage and the minimum wage went from $7 to $9, basically nothing would happen. Nothing would change. So the good question is, well, why would the government do such a thing and have a non-binding minimum wage? Well, the answer is it looks good politically. And in addition, right, I guess to some degree, well, it may not be binding in certain markets, but it would be in other markets, right? So for the most part, I think probably all of you will never face a situation. You will be in labor markets where the equilibrium wage is much higher than minimum wage, and so it'll never be binding in the labor markets that you participate in once you graduate. But it will be binding for potentially other workers that are in low-skilled jobs, like food service jobs and things like that. So, but it does look good politically at the very least, so that might be why. All right, so to wrap up this chapter, just go back to the fact that prices ultimately are giving firms and consumers signals about what are the best courses of action in their life. And when the government comes in with price controls, they're basically distorting those signals. So it'd be kind of like if somebody put in an orange light in a stoplight, right? If the government all of a sudden replaced the yellow light with an orange light. Well, what does that mean? I'm not really sure. Does that mean slow down, stop? It's kind of in between yellow and red. It'd be confusing. I'm not really sure what the best course of action is, right? So, and that distortion, that confusion can lead to unintended consequences and bad things, especially, and it's especially interesting because the premise or the purpose of these laws is to help certain individuals or firms, but it seems like more than anything, it actually hurts them. So it's a really interesting economic aspect of our society, and it's why we need more highly educated people in politics, people that have taken economics classes. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this chapter. Good luck on your third exam, which covers chapters 4 through 6. I hope you have a good week. I'll see you after the exam for I'll see you next week for chapters 10, 12, and 13. We're only covering certain sections of those chapters, so keep an eye out on iCollege, and I'll let you know which parts of those chapters you're going to be responsible for. But in any case, I hope you have a good week. Email me if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video series.